There you go. How about you? Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. Welcome everybody this morning. And if you could please rise, we'll take a moment of reflection before we begin, please. Ms. Noble, could you give us an update on anybody that wants to join us virtually this morning, please?
Thank you. And through you, Mayor Eccles, before I begin, at any point, if you get disconnected, you can dial 1-647-558-0588 and enter the ID for this meeting, which is 891-5626-2480. Both member of council and staff have been briefed on the various features of the Zoom meeting software and will be raising their hands physically to speak. For members of the public, if you require any technical assistance, please send a chat message to myself, West Gray Communications, and I will attempt to assist you. It should be noted for members of the public that this meeting is taking place across two platforms, both on Zoom as well as being live streamed on YouTube. Public participation, if any, must be done through Zoom and cannot be done through YouTube at this time.
Thank you, Ashley. I'm going to ask, is there any declaration of interest from any one of the members? Seeing none, certainly can be declared if it does arise at any time. That brings us down to delegations, and we have two delegations this morning. First one being a presentation from Mr. Kevin Tremble. It's going to be difficult, this name change. Kevin, I think you used to work with BDO. Kevin does the audit for the municipality, but now BDO has changed their names, as seemingly a lot of corporations do these days. MNP LP. So Kevin, welcome this morning, sir. Thank you for joining us. And I'm going to turn the presentation over to you.
Thank you. As Mayor Eccles mentioned, BDO was bought out by MNP effective January 1st, 2025. So, I mean, it's all the same people in the Hanover office doing the audit, all the same processes, but the letterhead's changed. So I'm Kevin Tremble. I'm a partner at the MNP office in Hanover. I'm presenting the 2023 audited financial statement report. It's a 77-page report. I'm going to try to keep this as quick as possible, as I know it's probably a full agenda.
No, you've only got 10 minutes.
That's fine. So on page 1 of the package, there is an independence letter. Being independent is a very important part of being the external auditors, allows us to issue an unbiased opinion on the financial statements. We can confirm that we're independent of the municipality of West Gray as of February 4th, 2025. The only things that may bear some independence issues, we do assist with the financial statement preparation. This could be thought as a self-review threat. We assist in the preparation and then we ultimately issue an opinion on financial statements. So we have some safeguards in place there. The management approves any changes to the financial statements. They'll approve any adjusting journal entries. And then within our own organization, we have several levels of review that goes through to make sure that that's proper safeguards are in place. So that being said, we're independent of the municipality of West Gray. Pages 3 to 8 on the agenda package there is a financial highlight summary of the financial statements. I'm not going to go through that in detail. That's more just so that everyone can, the financial statements are 66 pages long. I try to condense them down into 5 to 7 pages that are easily understood by everybody reading the statements. So it's for information for those reading the statements. On page 9 of the financial statement package is our audit findings report. So in this report, we cover significant matters which in our opinion should be aware of members of council. Our engagement status. So as of right now, we've substantially completed the audit for the December 2023 financial statements, with the exception of receiving a signed representation letter. We're required to look at subsequent events right up to the report date. And then ultimately council has to approve the draft financial statements presented in this package. We expect this to all be completed either later today or tomorrow morning, and we'll issue our final auditor's report. On the next page, it goes into audit reporting matters. So our audit was conducted in accordance with Canadian generally accepted auditing standards. Some significant audit and accounting matters here. There's been no changes from our audit plan that we would have presented back in the summertime. Final materiality for the audit was $550,000. During our audit, we do look for instances of fraud. An audit cannot detect or would be relied on to discover all instances of fraud, but I just want to reiterate that we didn't find any fraud during our audit this year. Nothing's come to our attention that would suggest any non-compliance with laws or regulations that would have a material effect on the financial statements. We also review internal controls within the municipality here. It's not sufficient. We don't express an opinion on internal controls, but we do look at those that impact the financial reporting process, and there was no significant issues to bring to council. And then some of the more riskier areas during our, we do special work on, revenue recognition. Note that it's some complicated areas of public sector accounting standards, and we do specific procedures on that. There's no issues to note there. Employee feature benefits liability, again, very complicated calculation. We do specific procedures on that to make sure it was calculated properly, and nothing to note there. Management override of control. Due to management's position, they have the ability to, you can have all the greatest controls in the world, they have the ability to override them. So we have specific procedures to ensure that that hasn't occurred, and we didn't have any issues during our audit. And then the last one there, asset retirement obligation. So this is a new accounting standard that was supposed to come into effect January 1st, 2023. Management wasn't able to perform an analysis to determine whether an asset retirement obligation should be recorded this year. The information hasn't been gathered at this time. So the municipality has not adopted PSAS 3280, and this is a gap departure, and our audit report opinion will be qualified in this manner. And I'll go into that a little more detail on the next page. So on the actual financial statements, our independent auditors report. So this is what MMP attaches to the financial statements. They are West Grey's financial statements, and MMP issues an audit opinion on the statements. So the very first paragraph, opinion, we've audited the consolidated financial statements of the municipality of West Grey as at December 31st, 2023. In our opinion, except for the possible effects described in the basis of qualified opinion paragraph, the consolidated financial statements present fairly in all material respects the consolidated financial position of the municipality as at December 31st, 2023, in accordance with Canadian public sector accounting standards. And then it goes on to explain this qualified opinion. So as mentioned, effective January 1st, 2023, the municipality was required to adopt PS 3280 asset retirement obligations, which requires the recognition of legal obligations associated with retirement of tangible capital assets. Management has not completed this assessment. As a result, it's not possible to quantify the departure from Canadian public sector accounting standards, and our opinion has been qualified in that manner. I do want to point out that this is really common in some of these smaller municipalities in this area. We audit 12 to 15. I bet you 6 or 7 of them have the same qualification this year. And what the plan is to gather the information over the next year, then restate the prior year numbers. So very common. It's just a big standard. For those that are around in 2010 when capital assets came into effect, very similar. We issued an audit opinion without capital assets in there. The municipality gathered all the information, and then we restated the financial statements when that information was available. So it's just a big standard to adopt all in 1 year. So it does take time. So you're not the only ones with this qualification. It'll be very common across Ontario. So there's a new paragraph in the report here called other matters. Because our name changed, we have to state that the prior year financial statements were audited by a different auditor. It was myself, but we were BDO at the time. But I just have to state that, so that's new. On the next page, the responsibilities of management and those charged with governance. So I do want to reiterate that management is responsible for these financial statements and to present them in accordance with Canadian public sector accounting standards. They're their statements. And then those charged with governance, which would be council, is responsible for overseeing the financial reporting process over the entire year. As the auditor, our responsibilities are to obtain reasonable assurance that the consolidated financial statements as a whole are free of material misstatement, whether due to fraud or error, and to issue an auditor's report that includes our opinion. And then after that, there is 60 pages of financial statements. I went through them in detail with management last week. We don't have the time to go through them in detail, but you've had time to review them. So if there's any questions, myself or Carrie can answer them. I'd like to thank Carrie for her help during the audit this year. It was a busy year and it's a little bit later issuing the audit report, but it is done and we can get started on next year's audit.
Just to quantify that, that's next year's audit, which was last year.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Any of the council members have a question or comment? All fine. Councillor Townsend, Doug?
Well, there we go. Not so much a question on the audit itself as to maybe some of our internal practices and what we're doing to look after internal matters and recoup some things. One thing that jumped out to me in their letter that page 6 in our package, with financial highlights and stuff, and it was talking about how unpaid taxes have increased by $407,000 in this last fiscal year, over and above what was in that before that. And to me, $407,000 is a lot of money, and wondering what we're doing as a municipality to recoup those lost revenues, because $407,000 would fix a bridge. So it just, every dollar kind of counts nowadays. So just wondering what we're doing to recoup those funds.
Thank you, through Mayor. So one, it's not lost revenues. Those revenues are captured. It's just the receivable side. We will be processing and we send out various stages of letters to individuals for tax sales. Eventually we get the receivable back, but we hold that as a receivable, but the revenue is actually recognized and recorded in the year. So we're not losing revenues. It's just we're holding those receivables, but we will be processing going through the stages of processing tax sales on properties throughout the year. There's various notices that go out. So.
Okay, anything else? I think it was other than the asset changeover, I can say it was a favorable audit. Would I be fair in saying that, Kevin? In your professional opinion, of course.
Yeah. Like Carrie and her team's great to work with. Like I said, it's a little bit later issuing an audit report, but you guys had some extenuating circumstances with staffing during the year here that delayed things, but nothing that we became aware of that we should be concerned of from an audit perspective.
Thank you. If there's no questions, what we do need is a motion to receive the audited report, the draft audited reports, and endorse those. And before I'll ask for a mover, I'm going to ask do you have something prepared for Eckensweiler?
Yes, through you, Mayor Eccles, I have that in consideration of a presentation provided February 4th, 2025 by Kevin Tremble, MNP LLP, respecting the 2023 Municipality of West Grey draft audited financial statements. Council approves the 2023 draft audited financial statements as presented.
You were going to say all of that, were you? Certainly. I'll let you move it anyways. Thank you. And Councillor Noon will second that. Moved by Deputy Mayor Hutchison. Any further questions on the motion? The only thing I'd like to say is thank you for those kind words. I think that we do have Director of Finance is outstanding. It's not, if she's not one of the best in Ontario, we know she's the best in Grey County. So and her staff do a tremendous job to keep us all on keel. So thank you, Carrie, for that. No other questions? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Thank you. And I'll let you get back to your office, Kevin, and start the 2024 audit. Thank you. Okay. Thanks, Kev. All right. I'm not mistaken. Then our next delegation is from David Donnelly. And if I'm not mistaken, this one's going to be a virtual. If Mr. There's somebody on the screen now. Mr. Donnelly, good morning, sir.
Good morning, Your Worship.
I think you did a wise thing by the way the weather is outside in Grey County of coming virtually. Although we have many accommodating people, if you did get storm stayed here, we could put you up for a couple of days at least before you got back to your office. Mr. Donnelly's got updating on the aggregate bylaw, or more notably on the use of an interim control bylaw. I turn the floor over to you, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a PowerPoint presentation. I'm wondering if it could be put up on, if I could get the sharing privileges, that would be very helpful. Great. Now, let me just see if I know how to advance it.
There you go.
You just have to let us know when to advance it. We don't allow participants access to do that.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship and Council. My name is David Donnelly. I represent the Reform Gravel Mining Coalition, as well as several groups in West Grey. I've been asked to present to you today a presentation regarding updating the West Grey official plan and bylaws using the tool of an interim control bylaw. If we could go to the next slide, please. So the problem has been described to me, and based on my own independent research, is that the current aggregate policies and constraint mapping in West Grey are based on an outdated Grey County study from 2004, making them largely ineffective, or at the very least substandard when compared to other municipalities in Southern Ontario. The fact of the matter is there are no made in West Grey aggregate policies, and that's much unlike many other places in Ontario. In West Grey, there are 29 licensed pits. That's a lot for a municipality of your size. But in fact, only 10% of the licensed capacity of those pits was used or extracted in 2023. That means that you have a very large surplus or overcapacity of licensed pits in West Grey. Now, it's true that the province does prioritize, in many respects, aggregates over all other land uses, but that's not to say that the province requires you to have an oversupply of aggregate, or at least licensed aggregate, when in fact, in Ontario, there are licenses that are current and issued that stretch well into the future with respect to the available tonnage that represents 14 times more aggregate than we consume each year. In Ontario, we consume roughly 165 million tons of aggregate. There's 14 times that available throughout Ontario. In West Grey, you have about 10 times available that is licensed over what is actually being extracted by the companies that hold those licenses. If I could have the next slide, please. Probably the biggest problem we have in Ontario is that we do not regulate aggregates, stone, sand, gravel, like other non-renewable resources. Think, for example, of fisheries or perhaps forestry. Those industries are based on a rational supply, a rational analysis of the biomass or the supply and the demand. So fisheries, for example, they take an estimate of the biomass of the cod stock, for example. They look at what the regeneration rate is, what the sustainability catch rate would be, and then they take a fraction of that to ensure sustainability. Forest, it's very much the same thing. They calculate the biomass of the wood fiber growth each year. They look at the loss through fire and pests, and they look at a sustainable rate of lumber supply from there. We do the exact opposite in aggregate. What happens by and large is companies walk their Aggregate Resource Act licenses into municipal offices. They almost always are approved, and the supply of aggregate just keeps going up and up and up and up. But as you can tell, even in West Grey, that doesn't mean that extraction is going up and up and up. It just means that more and more pits and quarries are being approved, and the rationality, or where is the extraction coming from, where is it going, what is the right supply mix, that is not being considered. And it wasn't considered recently in an M&R study looking at Ontario's aggregate supply. So if the province isn't going to do it, then our primary conclusion, or really plea to your council, is that you should do it by adopting an interim control bylaw. If we could have the next slide, please. So an interim control bylaw, you may be familiar with it. It's a tool under Ontario's Planning Act, Section 38. It puts a temporary freeze on new land uses while a municipality is reviewing policies that may be inadequate. It doesn't freeze or doesn't stop existing or ongoing land uses. A interim control bylaw may be passed with notice. There's no need for a public meeting. There's no need for a big staff report. It can simply be passed with proper notice, and an interim control law may be extended to a maximum 2-year period. So you can take your time, or 2 years, to do the studies necessary to determine what, if anything, needs to be done with the West Grey aggregate policies. If I could have the next slide, please. So this is just simply a excerpt of the bylaw, and it provides the rule where council of a local municipality has, by bylaw or resolution, directed a review or study be undertaken in respective land use planning policies in the municipality or defined area. The council municipality may pass a bylaw, hereinafter referred to as interim control bylaw, to be in effect for a period specified in the bylaw, which period should not exceed 1 year from the date of passing, at which essentially prohibiting the use of land, buildings, or structures within a municipality within a defined area, or except such persons set out in the bylaw. So it's a very simple tool. It is used quite frequently in Ontario. One example you may be familiar with is the ICBL that was adopted for the Glen Abbey Golf Course when the town of Oakville was trying to decide what, if anything, they wanted to allow on the golf course. There was a proposal for a very large urban sprawl subdivision. The town was against it, and so it passed an urban control bylaw so that it could study the cultural heritage value of Glen Abbey. The town was ultimately successful with the ICBL. We could have the next slide, please. So ICBLs, as I said, are very common. They've been passed in many, many municipalities: Toronto, Oshawa, Burlington, you name it. The effect of them is to provide what the Ontario Land Tribunal has called breathing room for municipalities to study an issue like overdevelopment, for example, or the need for mixed use. The matter of temporary rental accommodations, Airbnb, has been studied in places like Oro-Medonte and elsewhere. So it provides municipality with the breathing room to study the issue and to develop policies to protect public health and safety that reflect local priorities. If we could have the next slide, please. So one of the primary reasons to pass an interim control law bylaw is that the new policies can be used by residents and council to deal with matters like oversupply of aggregate or the approval of new aggregate facilities. Where municipal policies are weak, this provides an extreme advantage to, for example, aggregate companies who are bringing new aggregate applications to municipalities that are overwhelmed with aggregate. In my respectful submission, that would include West Grey. The new policies allow the public and your council to apply better policies to the evaluation of those new aggregate extraction licenses. An ICBL allows you to establish processes and policies that make the municipal councils more proactive in dealing with aggregate extraction and its evaluation. We have the next slide, please. So very recently, the town of Caledon passed an ICBL and in fact adopted a very substantial official plan amendment, OPA 1, which dealt successfully with the matter of new aggregate extraction in Caledon. If we could have the next slide, please. They passed a number of new policies. The highlights would be adopting the World Health Organization 2021 Global Air Quality Standard for PM 2.5. That's the fine particulate matter of 5 micrograms per cubic meter of air. The current standard in Ontario is 8.8 micrograms, but it is based on a very old study. It's almost 2 decades old. Science has moved on, but the Ontario government has not. Caledon became proactive in protecting the air quality of its residents. So in other words, in Caledon, thanks to the ICBL and the OPA, now new aggregate operations are required to meet the new 5.0 standard. Now, the OPA is sitting on the minister's desk awaiting approval, but that's what the residents of the town of Caledon asked council to do, and that's what they did. And it also requires proper air quality monitoring for all new approvals. If I could have the next slide, please. The ICBL provided for woodland protection in Caledon. Now, any woodland over a half a hectare with a biomass of 150 tons per hectare is to be preserved, both for the biological advantages, but also for climate change resiliency. There's wetland protection. They brought back provincially significant wetland complexing, which was taken out by the Ford government. The people of Caledon wanted that protection back in for the disappearing wetlands in Caledon. That was done. And finally, the removal of water, the export of water from dewatering from aggregates is now prohibited. If I could have the next slide, please. Sorry, could we have the next slide, please? So the opportunities in West Grey, I think, are substantial. The studies that you may wish to consider would include things like what is the appropriate setback for new aggregate from the Saugeen River that would deal with things like flooding, enhanced tourism opportunities, and fisheries. Certainly, you could revise the constraint mapping to determine the most environmentally and socially responsible locations for new pits. That could include both cultural heritage landscape mapping and natural heritage system mapping. You could also look at vulnerable groundwater, environmentally sensitive groundwater and recharge areas. The study could also look at the issue of cumulative impacts, noise, dust, and traffic, and most particularly the impact of haul road traffic on your infrastructure. I heard the problem of the missing $400,000. West Grey, if I was a resident of West Grey, I would be very curious about the road maintenance costs are every year owing to haul route traffic. In many other municipalities that have studied this issue, it's proven to be quite substantial. My best guess is it's substantial in West Grey, and an ICBL would give you the opportunity to discover that and then to make a remedy. If I could have the next slide, please. So with that, it would be my conclusion that I think there's a growing sentiment in West Gray that it's time to update your official plan with respect to aggregate extraction, and in particular the evaluation of new aggregate applications. And the ICBL is an excellent tool for doing that, as we just saw in Caledon. The people of Caledon, I can tell you, whether it's the mayor or the residents, are quite happy with the outcome of their ICBL and the official plan amendment that resulted. And it's my job here today to recommend that to West Gray. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you very much for the update on that, David. I understand, Mr. Donnelly, you've done quite a bit of work on this, and certainly through with Caledon, and using the process to be updated on what we need. You said you're wanting or could answer a few questions, and I'm going to open it up. We are probably a little bit over time, but this topic, I think, deserves extra time. So we'll do that at this point in time. Is there any questions for Mr. Donnelly from anyone at the table? Councillor Shea, go ahead, Jeff.
Yes, thank you. Good morning. Thanks for the presentation. So are you suggesting that an official plan update would be the best tool for managing aggregate extraction within West Gray? We don't have an official plan in our non-urban areas. We use the county's official plan currently. But the interim control bylaw would be a temporary measure while we looked at a more long-term measure. And you're saying that an official plan would be the best long-term measure?
Yes, that's how you put in place permanent policies, or at least policies that can evolve over time. I mean, official plans can and should be updated regularly to advance with the science. So if the Ontario government is lagging behind in air quality standards, for example, your official plan can improve upon that to protect the health and safety of residents. The official plan is the right place to do that. And because it's open, it's transparent, everybody knows the rules if you just simply read the official plan.
Okay, anyone else? Yep, go ahead, Doug.
Yeah, and I guess my question was similar along the same lines as Councillor Shay's, because we don't have an official plan. We work under Grey County's official plan for the rural areas. So is it Grey County that's got to do this, and it's maybe a question more for staff too, or is it something that we can't put an interim control bylaw in on a Grey County official plan? I don't know. I'm asking. There's smarter people in the room than me on this one. So
More knowledgeable on legislative affairs. That would be a legislative person that would need to answer that question. You want to take a shot at it, Jamie, or are you going to defer?
I'm going to refer this one over to our planner.
So two things. I believe also on the agenda today is a notice of motion for council's direction on that. So obviously this is going to come back later in your agenda. In order to try and keep within the mayor's, the question you've asked both councillors, or you pointed to in some respects, is a official plan. We have an official plan. It's the County of Grey's official plan. You're correct in that. The policies regarding aggregate development, extraction, so on and so forth are policies that belong to us that happen to be written in the County of Grey official plan. So to talk about an official plan, there's only two opportunities. Number one, you develop your own official plan, your own costs, your own just for aggregate in the rural area. Is it possible? Possibly. Is it ugly considering you still need to follow the county official plan? Yes. The second option is to say to the County of Grey is that West Grey, and maybe there's other municipalities within the County of Grey, have some concerns over the County of Grey's aggregate extraction policies that apply to all of us. And we would like you to take a look, as Mr. Donnelly and others have suggested, at your aggregate policies in the bigger sense, because we use your official plan and it's been suggested those policies are behind. To me, that would be a more effective way of moving forward, is to go to the organization who controls the official plan, the County of Grey Council, and to say to them, we think this in regards to the official plan. What do the rest of councilors think here? Yes, no, direct staff, don't direct staff in terms of aggregate review. An interim control bylaw here, and I'll bring it up again this afternoon, sorry, comes with costs. You cannot pass an interim control bylaw without putting the money in for the study and the terms of reference for the study. And it was mentioned right in the slide that Mr. Donnelly provided that a review, which has been interpreted as a approval of monies for a study with the terms of reference before you have an interim control bylaw to be passed. In other words, what the government is saying is that, okay, you want to put a drastic, because an interim control bylaw is a drastic means under the Planning Act, in place for a certain thing to stop people from doing what they can with their property. But you have to put your money where your mouth is, and with the terms of reference for that, what that study is supposed to look like, in order for so that people know what this 1 year is going to look like and how long it's going to take and who's going to do it and where the money's going to come from. So there are additional things that go along with it other than just passing, oh, no more aggregates in West Grey for a year. We're good. No, it goes beyond that. So two things. Number one, I do believe it belongs to the County of Grey table for that. And two, if you do go down the interim control bylaw route, there are additional things that you are going to have to do and pass and pay for.
Okay. And, sorry, Mr. Donnelly, go ahead.
Your worship, two things. First, it's a bit unusual. You don't, as a township, don't have your own official plan. Certainly, the Grey County could pass or adopt a chapter in their official plan called the West Grey Aggregates Chapter. It could stand alone. It wouldn't have to affect the whole county. So you don't need to pass an ICBL or adopt policies for the whole county. You could simply adopt made in West Grey policies that could be written into the Grey County official plan. That would be one way around it. Or you could adopt your own set of aggregate policies in your own official plan. Well, that leads to the question of cost. And while it's true that it wouldn't be free to do this, the idea that you would have to set about and do a number of sophisticated, costly studies is not the case. You could simply borrow from the Caledon experience, where very sophisticated technical studies were done with respect to air quality, natural heritage, hydrogeology. Those are policies of broad application. The science is general. It applies across Ontario, not just limited to Caledon, air quality being a very good example. We all have the same lungs, share the same airshed, all should benefit from the same science. So with respect, the cost of the ICBL need not be exorbitant. For example, you could simply adopt the studies from Caledon and embrace them as your own, or modify them as you see fit. But I don't see the need to go out and commission a whole raft of new studies. Some studies would probably be advisable because your aggregate policies are so out of date or non-existent in some cases. But I don't believe that this would be an enormously costly exercise if you didn't want it to be.
Thank you. I think we're getting just a little bit now. We're starting to develop policies and whatnot. That's not quite what the delegation was about. So we'll, but thank you for your interpretation of that. We'll see where we go. As we said, I don't believe that, contrary to your statement, that West Grey is unique in not having a official plan for the whole municipality. At least two other municipalities in Grey County follow the county official plan. They do not have, and I think in rural Ontario, once you get outside of the GTA, you'll find that that is more of the norm for rural municipalities, that they follow the county official plan, still going back more to amalgamation, that they did not do that. making their own official plan. Now, in saying that, yes, there are a couple in Grey County that have gone forward and done that or have completed their own official plan. Two of them that I'm understanding are Southgate and Grey Highlands in the last probably 4 or 5 years. But doing an official plan, if I'm not mistaken, would probably be looking to Carl or maybe David. Is at least a 2-year process to be able to get that everything together and whatnot to get an official plan done with all the requirements that's needed for that. At this time, we're dealing with the county official plan on aggregates. One of the things that I would like to state, you said that 10% of the extraction in West Grey, we only have 10% of the licensed extraction. What you failed to say was that well over 50% of the licensed extraction in Grey County, the pits are not even open. I think I'd be, and I know it's well over 50%. I don't have to surmise that one, that licensed pits, 50% of those pits of the extraction that's licensed are not even on open pits. So when we extract that back, the extraction from open pits is one thing. The percentage would rise dramatically on that, and it wouldn't be 10% if we eliminated those. The other one that I just wanted to state in your presentation, you said about fisheries and forestry, which are two renewable resources, natural resources. And in my humble opinion, aggregate is not a natural renewable resource. I farmed for a number of years and I thought that stones did reproduce over the winter when I started picking stones on cornfields and whatnot, but they do not. Anyways, that it's difficult to, I think, for myself to be able to compare the two from oceans and fisheries to aggregate resource. Aggregate is where aggregate is, and West Grey is where we are. Mr. Donnelly.
I take your point, sir. I probably should have said that non-renewable natural resources like oil and gas, coal, are regulated in a similar fashion. So I take your point about the renewable resource, but oil and gas is regulated as a natural resource. There's a rationality to a process. There's a supply and demand. There's a licensing process that involves hearings, for example. There are policies. There are energy boards. So I would say that. The other thing I would say is that I take your point about the closed pits and quarries, or pits anyway. But again, an ICPL would do an investigation into that. Why are they closed? Why are you licensing new pits and quarries when you have ones where they are licensed, but they're simply not being used? In other words, an examination of the industry would be required. And even if it's only 50% of the pits, that still means there's a 50% oversupply in terms of available licensed aggregate. I still think that would warrant a review.
Note taken. Okay. I think we got time for one last question. Councillor Hutchison. Doug?
Well, I was just going to suggest that would this be the time for us to ask our planning department to, if nothing else, have a discussion with the county? Sorry.
Go ahead, Jamie.
Through Mayor Eccles, we do have a notice of motion on this matter later in the agenda, so I would suggest that this conversation would be best had later.
Thank you, Jamie. Yes. Okay. Again, thank you very much, Mr. Donnelly. Gives us some more information to work with as the notice of motion comes forward later in our agenda, probably later this afternoon. So thank you for the informative discussion, informative information that's going to make the discussion even that much more interesting going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council.
Okay. All right. What time have we got? 10:40. All right, then we'll move on. Jamie, down to number 5 on the agenda, public meetings. There are no public meetings scheduled for today. Comment period. At this point, we offer a chance, forget what the timing is, 2 minutes each. We've got 10 minutes on here for anyone that would like to make a comment from the public. Procedure will be, I'll ask you to use the microphone and give your name. And we'll start with this young lady. So you got 2 minutes, isn't it? Oh, yeah.
Hi, guys. It's Sarah Hopkins again. I just have a quick comment, really
from
under
West
2
Grade.
minutes. We are here as West Grade residents in front of our West Grade Council, asking you to do something to protect us, our environment, our tourism, our tax dollars, our bridges. Please, hear us out, do what you can. I'm hearing it feels like a pass the buck kind of situation. Oh, well, we don't have a plan. That's Grey County. That's not us. In West Grey, rural West Grey, we feel like West Grey's more than just Durham, Newstead. Here, the locals, the rural people don't pay our taxes and don't have our roads plowed and have our bridges closed. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Do we have anybody online, Ashley? Nope. Not at this point in time. Okay. Anyone else? All right. Then we'll move on with the agenda. Thank you very much. Adoption of the minutes. We have 2 sets of minutes, one from the regular council meeting, January 14th, and one from the public council meeting.
I'm sorry, but I'm gonna be back for it.
That's, we'll take, you want to take 5 minutes recess? Yeah. Okay, how about we do that? We'll take a 5-minute recess and come back and do the start at number 7 on the agenda, adoption of the minutes. Okay, we'll call the meeting back to order. And now we're down to the number 7, adoption of minutes. In our package, we have the minutes from the regular council meeting January 14th and the public council meeting January 14th as well too, planning. Do we have a mover and seconder to accept those minutes as presented? Moved by Councillor Forrester, seconded by Councillor Noon. Scott and Joyce, any errors or omissions? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Thank you. The next one is committee and board reports. We have a number of them, I think 7 in total. We can pass those in one motion if that's agreeable. The SMART board meeting November the 15th, BIA meeting November 19th, SVCA board meeting November 21st, SMART board meeting November 22nd, minutes from SMART on December the 11th, Grey County Council highlights January 9th, and the highlights from the January 23rd meeting. Do I have somebody to move those or to receive those minutes? To approve them? Councillor Hutchison and Councillor Townsend. And any comments, questions? Councillor Townsend.
Thank you. Just to advise council and staff, there's a few in there from Suggy Mobility. We changed our recording secretary, and there was a bit of a little backlog there. Send an email because we hadn't seen any in the packages for a while, and it was just a little missed cue on the recording secretary's part to get them to the municipality. So that's why you're seeing a few of them in this package.
Very good. Okay. Anything else, Councillor Noon? Joyce?
It's just more of a comment, just addressing the Saugeen Valley Conservation's minutes and noting that when it comes to costs and support with our Frazzle Ice, with, you know, taking the boards out and so on and so forth, I find it very upsetting that we don't get more support from those Saugeen member representatives that live outside of West Grey. They don't have that financial burden that we will be experiencing. So I just want to make that note that it's unfortunate we don't get more support when it comes to each one of us and how we're affected in Grey County. But those of us in West Grey really are going to be burdened by that cost.
Yep. Maybe have a little bit more on that when the CEO's report comes up. Some of that's addressed there as well too, on actions that we can't take. Okay. Anything else? Yep. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor of receiving those reports? Any opposed? That's carried. Correspondence. We have number 9 in our package, 9.1. We have one correspondence that staff is recommending for direction, and that 9.1.1 is the Epilepsy Southwestern Ontario. What do you want to deal with this one, Jamie? Want to put it on the floor or comment and see what we're going to go with? Go ahead, Jamie.
Three Miracles request was received from Epilepsy Southwestern Ontario with the request to illuminate our buildings in purple. We don't have the capabilities of doing that, but similar requests in the past, we have illuminated our road sign at the municipal office here, and as well as the park in Elmwood. We've put a purple splash screen up there for different things. So if council would like to do that, it's recommended that be done on March 26th, which is the Epilepsy Awareness Day. But direction from council would be required to proceed in that fashion.
All right. What we're looking at. Anybody have any comments and or motion? Councillor Shay, Jeff?
I would move what the clerk outlined.
As recommended by the clerk, we'll go for that. Okay. So I think what that is, the motion, do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Townsend. Thanks, Doug. Any further questions or comments on that one? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. The other, we have 9.2 is correspondence received. Do we have any one of those ones that need to be pulled for further discussion? Councillor Hutchison. Yes, I was looking at you.
I would like to poll for discussion number 2 and number 4. I have a question. I don't know if we really need to poll it and whatnot, but it might be worth discussing somewhat. And number 5, 2, 4, and 5.
All right.
Okay. Well, Northumberland County.
It's one on Northumberland, yes.
Right. So
Go ahead.
again, I'm not 100% clear on this, but it just sounded like when we look at the wording from the township of Pusledge, they talk about allowing certain quality soil to be disposed at excess soil reuse sites instead of being deposited in landfill. So it just brings to mind that, is it really talking about bringing soil and fill from the city area to our area and dumping it into farmers' fields and so on, which we've had happen in the past? Like, to me, that's sort of what this is saying, that there are no really controls on what's coming into our municipalities and where it's going. They talked about it, obviously can't put it into landfills because maybe that creates issues because our landfills are limited in life. So I wasn't totally sure on what they was getting at. Maybe someone else has a better read on it than I do, but I just thought, to me, it sounds like it's an opportunity maybe to show that we want some controls on fill that's coming into our area. Is that how it reads to other people?
I'm gonna look, staff got any understanding on that from the public works perspective and or?
I think if you look at the second paragraph of that one under Pusledge, it says that it's currently under resource, Ministry of Environment and Conservation Parks, currently under resource and lacks the capacity to effectively manage the additional enforcement and oversight required for the relocation of excess soil. And then it goes on to talk about protecting agricultural lands. Failure to adequately protect these lands could exacerbate the ongoing food crisis in Ontario. So seems to me it reads that, you know, they're trying to prevent excess fill being dumped into agricultural areas, is what it sort of sounds like. But I don't know, maybe it's worth further discussion at a later date and not worry about it at this point. But it just strike a bit of a concern, I think.
Okay, I'm going to CO. Michelle?
Thank you and good morning, Council. We haven't done any in-depth research on this, but I am certainly, if it's Council's wish, I'll certainly talk to staff and follow up with you directly in my next update on an interpretation of what that is.
Jamie?
Three Miracles, and just to further what the CEO had indicated, just for council's information, Westgrade does have a bylaw to regulate the placement of fill, removal of topsoil and salt and site alteration. So we do have some controls in place to regulate fill and site alteration.
All right, so we can leave that one for now then. The next one had to do with the provincial government legislation, cycling lanes. And I was curious whether this is going to affect the Grey County with their cycling master plan, because my understanding is when they replace road, they put in a 1 meter cycling, it's not really a cycling lane, but a 1 meter shoulder on when they replace the asphalt on a road. So I'm thinking the next project close to us is the Durham to Gray Road 23 is going to be done in 2026, I believe. So I'm hoping that this doesn't override that, and the government says, no, you can't put that shoulder in there because it's it's geared for cycling. But if it's not called a cycling lane, maybe we're okay. Any county members have a comment on that?
If you may, in your exact, and corrected yourself there, and they're not cycling lanes, they're paved shoulders. What has been found is, yes, they can act as a access for bicycles. But what it more is with what we found from a number of studies is the edge of the highway without having that paved shoulder on it. And a lot of the larger trucks get broke off, and the life cycle of the infrastructure of the paved road deteriorates quite dramatically by allowing water, frost and whatnot to get in and cracking on the edge of the roads. So that's why it was put in as that the meter beyond the paved driving portion. So it's a paved shoulder to do that. Yeah, secondarily, it said bicycles can use it more adequately. I don't know what the interpretation at the county is from this action from the provincial government at this point in time on the bicycling lanes in downtown Toronto, some of the major urban centers. I don't think it will affect ours because it's more protection of the infrastructure itself and to extend the life by putting that 1 meter out there.
So we'll leave it there for now. Maybe just a heads up to keep an eye on that one, I guess, in terms of going forward. But I think it's a great idea. It's a great way of promoting cycling. And I know myself from my experience cycling on Gray Road 4 is not great when you're on that 6-inch strip along there and you get meeting a couple of trucks. It's not a pleasant experience. So, anyways, and the third one had to do with the municipal South Huron regarding the top aggregate producers or TAPMO letter. And I'll maybe refer this one to maybe someone who might have more experience and knowledge of the situation because they're on the TAPMO committee. But basically it's saying that we're going to be giving the aggregate or the gravel pits a bit of a tax break. So to me, I'm not sure why we would be giving them a tax break. So I'll let the mayor speak to that maybe.
Thank you for allowing me that opportunity to update you. Yes, we met at Roma. As you know, Wellington County looked to carry 4 years ago, went through a whole process on the taxation of aggregate resource and whatnot, and how the inequities that were there, and ended up in a court case and everything and legislative. And I got to say that TAPMO and Wellington County won that one, and we got a better taxation rate, the correct taxation rate being the industrial rate on all of the licensed area. Since then, the aggregate resources got together and lobbied, and the provincial government then gave the large aggregate producers the educational thing that exemption from their educational tax, which is collected by the municipalities, they were exempted from that, ending up that I would say the 2 cents that we gained from municipal taxes, the aggregate resources are paying, that they got a 5 cent reduction in their educational portion. That Ontario property taxes, so it shifted that portion back onto the municipal property tax payers. I'll say the TAPMO is doing our utmost to make the provincial government and certainly the Ministry of Finance aware of what they have done. At this time, it's not being received with open arms and saying that they'll correct their mistake at the provincial legislature. So maybe now it could be even put into being an election issue if somebody wanted to, and I imagine that's what it will be, certainly in Push Lynch, where the chair of TAPMO, James Seeley, is the mayor. He certainly wants to make it that as to how the aggregate industry is influencing the Ministry of Finance and our educational portions. So it's difficult, but that's Cole's notes. That's where we're at.
Okay, so obviously Tatmo's doing some work on this, but I think as a municipality, I think it's fair that we should voice our concern, and so I would like to support the South Huron resolution, and it's I've spoken to our clerk, so maybe he has something that we can put in there, but basically they're saying that Municipality of South Huron supports Tatmo's call for the provincial government to adopt reforms that prioritize the needs and fairness of municipal taxpayers and to ensure that the aggregate sector contributes its fair share to the province's tax base, and even municipal tax base. So
All right, you got something there, Jamie?
Yes, through you, Mayor, that in consideration of correspondence received January 15, 2025 from the municipality of South Huron respecting TAPMO letter regarding pre-budget announcement. Council directs staff to send a letter of support for the resolution to the Minister of Finance, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, local school boards, AMO, Roma, the MPP for Bruce Grey Owen Sound, and the Municipal Property Assessment Corporation.
Are we going to hold off on that until after February 27th, when we know who is going to be the MPP? That's Bruce Grey Owen Sound. Okay, let's get back to the motion at hand. Order. Yes. Bit of levity there. That's the motion. That's one you want to move, Doug? Do I have a seconder for that? Deputy Mayor Hutchison. Thank you. Any further discussion on that? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Okay. And on the first two, I don't think that there's, we'll follow up with some staff research on both of those. Okay. Then we have the rest of the correspondence to receive. Doug. Councillor Hutchison. Councillor Townsend, sorry.
Too many Dougs.
Doug one.
I'd like to pull and talk about number 9 from Canadian Union of Postal Workers. Just
Certainly, go ahead.
I've never been a member of CUPW, but I've worked with them closely over my career in the post office. And I mean, what they're asking for us here is to just support. They're going through the government's going through a process, and knowing the government and how they work with the post office at times and what's gone on, I can see them going back to wanting to close rural post offices again, and take away more services from rural Canada, which involves rural Ontario. So I would like to see us support this motion that they have in the package to put something, hold the government's feet to the fire, so to speak, in Ottawa to come up with a plan to keep the post office.
Rural post office is open.
Keep rural post offices open, yes.
Okay. You're making that a motion to support the motion that's here from Cup. Sorry, Cup W. Can you formulate that, Jamie? Yep. Okay. That was moved by Councillor Townsend. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Noon. Thank you, Joyce. Any other discussion on that one? Councillor Hutchison. Doug too.
Just a point. I do think that maybe through this review and whatnot, that they do need to look at restructuring Canada Post in terms of what they're doing and how they do it, sort of thing. I'm not in favor of taking away rural service, but I think there's a better way of maybe doing it, especially when we look at I think the latest release was $1 billion loan that the Canada Post was going to have for the near future to look at some restructuring and come up with a plan of how they're going to move forward. So I think it's good that they're doing some evaluation and maybe it'll make them more efficient in the future. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Shea. All right, Jeff.
I see here that they're calling for formal submissions by January 27th. Are we just getting this now because of the break, the Christmas? Is there any way that we could have responded by the January 27th deadline?
And is that for you? Yeah. Apparently it was mailed to us. I'll put that out there. That's why it's so late getting here.
Well,
Fine.
it's dated January 16th, calling with the deadline of January 27th.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Through miracles, it was received by staff on January 22nd, so it missed any opportunity to be brought before council until this time.
And I'm, when or what, how we, following, I guess we have a motion on the floor. Let's deal with that first. And then we'll put a question forward on making a response. Any further questions on the motion on the floor? Supporting Cup W. Call the question. All those in favor? That's good. Secondly, the hearing and having submissions put in. And I can't say for certain, but I thought I saw something, correspondence or something that they'd extended because of the mail strike and everything else that was going on. They extended submission dates to sometime in February, but I don't know. I may be still hypnotized from Saturday night. I'm not sure. I thought I saw that. So could we give direction to staff? I'd like to know the thought process, the understanding here of what impact closing rural post offices would have on our municipality. Could we get staff to look at, see whether they could delegate that or delegate authority to fill out? Jamie.
Through miracles, the direction in this motion was for West Grey to provide input to the commission in the form of a written submission, so that can be captured within what's already been directed.
So already there. Okay, thank you. Clarification. All right. Any other ones to pull? So the final ones, 1, 3, 6, 7, 8. I think those are the 5 that are left to receive for information. Can I have a motion for that? Thank you. Councillor Forrester, Scott, seconder, Councillor Shay. Jeff? To receive the rest of the correspondence for information. Any questions on that? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Okay. That brings us down to staff reports. For correspondence for sure. Staff reports, Westgrave Fire Services. We have a tiered response agreement here on 10.1.1 with the Westgrave Fire Service. Deputy Chief Edwards is with us. Morning, Sean. This is a multi agreement because of Elmwood being on the line. It's divided. How many different ways, Sean? 6, 7 different? But it is one that's been in agreement. It's just up for renewal. Is that how I read it for the most part? Sean?
Yeah, yes, that is correct. According to this, it's a quadra party agreement. That's what I'm saying. 4?
Yeah.
The Elmwood Fire and Westgrave Fire is a complicated matter that I myself have been trying to get a better handle on since I've been in this position. In regards to this agreement, it is typical that on a 5-year cycle that this agreement with EMS gets renewed with every fire department that they do business with. And in reviewing the schedule, I would be confident in saying that I don't have any concerns that the Elmwood Fire would be servicing the Westgrave portion any different than Westgrave Fire services the Westgrave portion with Grey County EMS.
Okay. Any further questions for Deputy on this agreement? And do I have someone that would move the adoption? Councillor Townsend and Councillor Hutchison. Okay. Any further questions on this? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Thank you very much, sir. Coming in. And glad that you didn't get hypnotized either on Saturday night at the Eight Lions dinner. 10.2, Building Department. Q4, Building Department activity. 10.2.1. Carl, anything to Director Shipwreck? Anything there to update?
Through you, Your Worship, there's no additional information in regards to the report. It's good news numbers, probably some of the largest, or are, as far as I am aware, the largest building permit revenue and building construction costs in Westgrave.
Does anybody want to move? Or is any questions? Moved by Deputy Mayor Hutchison, seconded by Councillor Hutchison. I was going to say I did have one question, but staff had answered that. Just a little bit of a, I don't know whether anybody else saw it. We've got multi-res units. I'm going to use the number 30. We've got residential units at 35, 65, new units at 63 or 62 or something of that nature. They just don't quite add up. From talking to staff earlier, where that comes in, you've got to go down quite a bit lower and you'll see demolitions. a house that's tore down and rebuilt doesn't add a new unit. It's just a replacement. So that's why the numbers confused me there. Didn't need an audit to come up with that. So, but thank you to the building staff for answering that for me, and just for clarification. Carl?
Yes, also through you, we do receive some applications for a multi-unit building. So if there's one building permit, may have multiple units in that one permit. If the intent is to sever like in a townhouse, then we would have a building permit for each unit. But if the intent is to rent, then we would only have one building permit, which could be up to
4 or 6.
Could be 20-unit apartment, but that would only count as one permit, but multiple units.
Yep. That's the interpretation of the report. Okay. So we haven't moved and seconded to receive for information. Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Second one, Carl, is on the Gunnell Collin town line, proposed tower installation. I think that this is a communications tower that north of Priceville there. Any further comments on this one?
Through you, there's no further comments specifically to this report. We've had multiple reports in the last few months in regards to towers. There were some questions at the previous meeting from some council members in regards to the carriers and who is requesting these towers. So I did have some communication with the applicant in this case. This company that is building the previous report, there were 3 towers, and then this report, there's 1 tower. This company is they were hired by a carrier, specifically in this case, Xplornet, to build these towers for them specifically. There are other companies that will, for lack of a better term, speculate, will build a tower and rent the space out. But in this case, these are being specifically built for a specific company at their request.
Excellent. Okay. All right. Good to know the connectivity is still happening. Councillor Townsend. Doug?
And I was thinking along the same lines because I seen Explorer, which is an internet provider, because we're not getting rural fiber. I don't believe that was part of the whole SWIFT thing. A lot of places got rural fiber. We're getting the high-speed wireless internet, which is what Explorer does. So I think that's why these towers are going up, is to provide our high-speed internet in rural Westgrade.
Very good. And in this, there's no approval from Westgrade. It's just we're commenting and making note of it that it's happening, as with the other towers that we've seen going up in the last 6 months, 6 to 12 months. Okay. Need a motion to receive that. Councillor Townsend and Councillor Noon. Thank you. Any further questions or comments on this one? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. All right. 10.3. Director of Finance, Treasurer, Carrie. Carrie's got a report 10.3.1 on surety bonds for development agreements. Carrie?
Yes, through you, Mayor. Nothing much to add, just sort of for council's information that there is a regulation now that outlines the requirements for the acceptance of surety bonds to be used as a tool to satisfy the developer's bond or the requirements of security, cash, letter of credit, and now the surety bonds. And it is up to the choice of the developer, but it does maintain with the requirements in the regulation securities for the municipality, so it mitigates some of the risk. But there is definitely lots of requirements in order to satisfy that. that protect the municipality, but it does offer an option to free up some capital funds on the developer's side. So
Okay. Any questions or comments? Well, this is as basically putting us in that we're accepting these now with the provincial regulations come down. Okay, so I need a mover and a seconder to accept this. Councillor New moves, Deputy Mayor Hutchison seconds. Any further questions or comments? We'll have that for our developers. All right, call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Thank you, Carrie. 10.4.1 basically is an update on emergency flood mitigation on the Saugeen River. How much have you found out about Fraser Ice in the first, 6-8 months of employment? Or
Thank you so much for this opportunity to speak to this. I have learned more about Fraser Ice than I ever thought I would need to know in my life. We've also joked about there are rumors of me traversing up and down the river with our staff. Perhaps some rumors spreading about what's going on, but I want to preface this before I speak to the report on how proud I am of our staff and the community for coming together to help mitigate a flood disaster. And that's what I wanted to update you on today. As we know, on November 26th of 2024, the Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority advised that they were ceasing winter operations at the Durham Upper Dam in an effort to prevent structural failure and ensure public safety based on engineering reports that they had received related to the dam itself. On January 6th, a mere month and a half later, they issued a flood watch for the municipality of West Grey, citing the presence of Fraser Ice and the potential for localized flooding. That subsequently got upgraded to a warning, and which moved our team into action and SVCA. Since that time, West Grey and SVCA staff have been monitoring the conditions of the river regularly, and during the most critical time, we had 24/7 monitoring of the river up and down. We also had mobilized heavy construction equipment along the river. That equipment remained available on standby 24/7 and are still on standby 24/7 and are on call at a moment's notice should we receive them or have a need for them. But at its most critical point, we had up to 8 hi-hos as well as bulldozers there trying to mitigate and prevent the clogging of the dam and potential flooding. It should be noted here that this flood mitigation is an unfunded cost for the municipality. We do know that we are going to need to look at longer term solutions for how we rehabilitate and or replace dams along the Saugeen River through downtown Durham specifically to mitigate flooding concerns. I also want to point out that the upper and the lower dams are owned by the Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority. The middle dam is owned by the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry, MNRF. So what we're asking here is that council direct staff to work with SVCA to continue lobbying and looking to the province, not just for funding to support the work we've been doing this winter to mitigate a disaster, but also for their support in looking at long-term solutions from best practices to also financial support. At the end of the day, as I've been regularly told, we are blessed by rivers, but they are also can be problematic when we're dealing with bridges, structures, etc. This is a big deal, and we certainly know there is no perhaps direct line between the cessation of winter operations and this year's frigid weather, but I think the impacts of what we're seeing are huge and I think do have a direct impact to the cessation of those winter operations. And we cannot continue to operate this way in perpetuity. We need to look at a solution. If I may also just add one more thing, we were the mayor and Councillors Shea and Hutchison and I were at the Rural Ontario Municipal Association conference. We did provide a backgrounder, have it available. We delegated to the Ministry of Infrastructure about this, to put this and bridges generally on their radar. But we also did a lot of casual lobbying to various ministries while we were there. So we will continue to push this message, but I think it's important that the public be aware of what's going on and that council be aware of what's going on.
Thanks, Michelle. Any further questions for Michelle? Doug? Councillor Townsend.
I still find it interesting that Sauget Valley Conservation lays claim to the upper dam and the lower dam, yet when anything involving money comes along, they've got nothing to do with it. It's all has to be borne by the municipality, which is just either they're in it or they're not. And their actions by not putting the boards in has cost the municipality hundreds of thousands of dollars. We don't have a clue yet. Yet, when the check's got to be written, they're nowhere to be found. And yet it was their plan to remove the boards, and knowing that that was in effect a system that has saved Durham over the last X number of years from frazzle ice, maybe when they've got their engineer's report, they should have come up with a plan or put a plan in place to offset the frazzle ice before they just pulled the boards. They should have said, we're gonna do it one more year and then we've got to come up with a plan. But to just pull them and then now the municipality of West Grey is left picking up the check for that, I find very irresponsible of the Sauget Valley Conservation.
Taken? Comments? Sure.
Thank you. If I may respond to that, I can't speak to how SVCA made that decision. But I think what we wanted to say here, I will say their staff have been wonderful as we've been dealing with this crisis. We want to move forward. And I think the whole messaging in this report is that whether we own the asset or not, we will be the recipient of whatever the outcomes of any potential crisis are or might be. So I want to make sure that we are working collaboratively, and I will leave it up to the wisdom of the SVCA board to see how they want to move forward with this. But I do want to encourage that we continue to work strategically and collaboratively. I know we are quite blessed that the new chair of the SVCA happens to be our deputy mayor. So I'm hoping that that will be helpful for us. And we have, in the true spirit of collaboration, we have one of the recommendations of this report is to have SVCA come to this council and delegate. And if it's council's wish, we have that tentatively scheduled for the next council meeting, because we need to collectively come up with solutions moving forward.
Tom? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Eccles, and good morning, and thank you, Madam CEO, for your kind words. The decision, just for clarity around the boards there, just to respond to Councillor Townsend, the engineering report that came to SVCA board presented that there was a health and safety risk to one's life. That's where the board arrived at that. As soon as they said risk of life, that's where that was supported, not to carry on any further activity with the boards around that until we had clarity on that. So I just want to be clear on that because that's how you have to endorse when there's a safety in one's life. That's how we arrive some decisions. But since that time, I'm led to believe, and I've been recently appointed and I'm digging into it, is the report from another engineer. It's not the same as what the report that was presented to the SPCA. So there's more to come on that. And I think there's some clarity on some of the language around it. So we were only provided what, this like 80% of what we needed, of 100% to make decisions. I think that's coming forward. The other thing I do want to mention, and it was brought up before by Councillor Noon, is the language around the benefiting municipalities where we brunt the bulk of the cost on this, in this case, this particular structure. So it is something that Mayor Eccles and myself are really we want to drill down this year, and we do want to get to the bottom of it. Where's the language around, where's the definition of a benefiting? We all are in the watershed. We collectively should share from the start to the finish in the whole, because again, water has no boundaries. And I think we should all be coming to some kind of language around that. Just wanted to update to everybody. That's one thing that Mayor Eccles and I will plan on trying to get an update and substantiate the language to that. So, and that's it. I just wanted to bring that up, but I just wanted to answer both the boards there. I know that was something was brought forward. The decisions of the SVCA at that time was based on what's presented, and it was more around the health and safety of the staff. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Noon, Joyce?
Thank you to Deputy Mayor Hutchinson and to our CAO for the updates and bringing things forward. And it's true, it's the lay of the land. It's just the way all the dams come through Durham. It's beautiful when in the summertime, but come winter, we play a big challenge with winter conditions, especially this year again. But my question right now is, or first a concern again, using the boards as a health and safety factor. Yes, if the dam should break, and if they're using the boards as that excuse that, we got to leave them out so the dam doesn't go. But in the other token, it's an aging infrastructure. And so it needs to be replaced regardless whether it's in or, is there any timeline that they're looking at replacing this infrastructure, the dam?
Sure.
Thank you, through you to council. Not yet, but that's part of what we're working on. We do have environmental assessments. We have applied for WECI funding with SVCA to do the next phase of that. On Friday, we actually completed the municipality a grant application for some climate resiliency. So all of these pieces are building on opportunities. So I think timing has to be urgent because of what we're dealing with, but I don't have those numbers at this point. We are also wanting to, in the funding application that we did to Intact for climate resiliency, we particularly didn't want to be prescriptive on what the solution might be. We wanted to identify the problem. Councillor Noon, as you suggested, this is a 100-year-old structure. So does rehabilitation make sense? Likely not, but are there opportunities, as a certain member of council has talked about, do we use this opportunity to look at power generation, or what are the innovative opportunities there? And that's what we want to explore. I should also add that the province has recently announced additional funding to look at this kind of flooding risks, et cetera. It's the health and safety water funding. We were supposed to attend a webinar on it tomorrow, but obviously with the provincial election, that's been put on hold for the time being. But that new pot of funding, which I think allows up to $10 million for funding, will look at opportunities like this. So we're staying on top of it. And I think that that's why it's so critical that SVCA come to this council, one, to address some of those questions you have that I might not be able to answer from a technical perspective, but also I think we have to go at this together. It's too much for us to tackle on our own. And as we've correctly said, it's not our physical asset.
Okay. Thank you for that, Michelle. Anything else? Doug, Councillor Tom.
Just and following up on what the CAO said, and I understand it sounds like they're starting to look at ways to resolve this problem down the road. But how far down the road is down the road? How many, knowing how slow the wheels turn in Toronto to get money up Highway 6 or 10 to do anything. How many more years, like, is there stopgap measures that we can work with SVCA to put in place so that as a municipality, we're not spending hundreds of thousands of dollars every year to put high hose in the river to, as you say, prevent one disaster, but could cause another one if one or two of those tipped over. So it's a real balancing act. And before we know it, the clock will be around and we'll be looking at this again next year. So just curious.
Madam CEO.
Thank you. Your point is very well taken. The wheels move slowly. There are engineering reports, all of those things. So I think we're looking at a two-pronged approach to this short-term mitigation that we will continue to have to figure out how to do. And then there's the longer-term piece on what this looks like. I will also say from the provincial point of view, when we were down at Roma, and those of you who have been to AMO as well, there, at least at this point, the provincial government has been very focused on most of their funding related to enabling more housing and affordable housing. And when we had a delegation recently with the Ministry of Infrastructure, they were talking about, well, you didn't apply for this funding for this bridge, or you didn't. We said, well, that had nothing to do with enabling more housing. That's around keeping our existing housing safe. So we've got to figure out, and I wish I had that answer for you. I think, I try to look at the criticality of what's happened this winter has highlighted the urgency of us dealing with this. It has, the fact that we are continuing to mitigate, and some of the conversations we've had with the emergency funding folks, we've said, so would it have been better for us to let everything flood so that we could reach your financial threshold, so we could get some, that's not the right answer for our community. So we need to make sure we are very clear on that. And all I will tell you is that we will continue to work with SVCA. I think this is elevated probably to this and our other 114 bridges, is a critical component and priority for us. And I think the only way we're going to be able to deal with this is to get the right collective people around the table. And I don't know what that looks like yet beyond SVCA, but do we need a task force? Do we need to look at a concentrated effort to move this forward? And we will have more information for you. But I think the first step is actually having conversations with SVCA and having them here so that we can collectively look to the best outcomes.
Okay, thank you. We will move to receive this report. Any other questions? You'll move, huh? Deputy Mayor Hutchison moves that we receive the CEO's report on emergency flood mitigation. Seconder? Councillor New. Joyce. Thank you. Any further comments on the motion? Receive the report. And I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you very much, Michelle. And this is not the end of it. It's just really the beginning of our journey here to resolve the issue. Number 11, questions. Asked and under the new procedural. Anything specific? Any questions that anyone has? Councillor Forrester. Scott?
All right, I'll give a stab at this. So this is from the May 2nd, 2023 meeting. So it's R 230502-39. regarding bylaw 74, 2017, surplus item auction. I wondered if we're gonna have any more in the future because we've only had one from items from this site here.
Thank you for the question. And I appreciate the heads up on it so I could do a little bit of research as well. At this point, we have not identified any particular items significantly that could go up for auction. We are in the process of this building here, looking at the basement and are there surplus desks, et cetera. We did have one a number of years ago, which included things from the Newstead Arena upstairs. A lot of work, virtually no uptake on it. So what we will be working, and as you know, we have some staffing gaps right now, but once we get our new team in to fill some of those gaps, we will be working with community groups to go through each of the buildings to see what assets they have there that they want to protect, what they don't want, and then we'll determine whether that is anything there is beneficial for auction or if we should just dispose of it. Auctions, as much as it sounds like a great idea, you need to do photography, you need to do write-up. It's a lot of resources. So we need to look at what the potential return is, but it's still on our radar and we haven't lost sight of it.
Very good. No fire trucks around? Oh, sorry, Mr. Edwards. Any other questions at this time? If anybody wants to understand the new procedure on how to bring questions forward, Scott will be available to mentor us.
And research.
Thanks, Scott. Okay, down to notice of motions. So we have a number 12, we have a notice of motion from the last meeting given by Councillor Shea, 12.1. Floor is yours for introducing this, Mr. Shea.
Thank you. So it's a very short motion, so I'll just read it. The council directs staff to bring forward a report on policy or planning options that would allow the municipality to take a more proactive approach to managing aggregate extraction in West Grey.
Very good. Do we have a seconder? Get that on. Councillor Noon. Any questions or comments on this motion? Councillor Hutchison. Doug? Got it. Sorry.
Yes, so I do think that it's something that we need to have a discussion with the county, since the county is the one that has the official plan for our rural area. So I think whether that be our planners going forward to have that discussion with the county, I think that's just a step. Maybe that would be included in this report. I hope anyway. So can't see us going alone without approaching them first. Thanks.
Councillor Noon. Joyce?
Yes, I agree with Councillor Hutchinson regarding that. Our speaker, David Donnelly, did speak on the fact that our official or the Grey County official plan would have the opportunity to put in a West Grey chapter specific for West Grey's aggregate. So I would like to see that if our planner could put something together to implement that at the County of Grey as an agenda item, maybe an upcoming meeting with the County of Grey that, and he did address things that could be looked at for West Grey, like when it comes to water and, how close, the proximities of a lot of these things would be to water and so on and so forth. So I really, I would make a recommendation that our planner or our staff look into providing this information on behalf of council to the County of Grey.
I think that's what the motion on the floor is, Joyce, to bring a report back on what our options or next steps would be to that point. Kent, is it looking at the county, what options we have here? Because I think, in my humble opinion, the idea that, We could put an interim control bylaw, but it's not our bylaw. We can't put an interim control bylaw on something we don't have. That bylaw's got to be passed at the county because of the way the official plan is in that planning. I think that was lost kind of to Mr. Donnelly. Caledon's in a different municipality. Caledon has an official plan for the whole municipality, where ours is, for no other word, a hybrid at this point in time. It's not that we're kicking the can down the road. That's what we're dealing with here. So the options, I think that this is a good motion here for staff to do some research and come back with options before we start giving direction. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Eccles. And yes, I would support this. The only thing I would request is that we should know some financials that would be attached with this on anything, the options that would come back. If that could be something to be allowed or they would consider. But I think there's going to be a lot of financial impact that we should be knowing that several options come to us, which one and what's the cost related to each one. But I'll leave it at that. I will support it, but I would like to see that as well.
Go ahead, Jeff.
I'm curious, would this refers to staff, would that be Mr. Shipwreck? Okay. Good, because I think Carl's quite broad-minded and open to balancing property rights with needs of neighbors and the municipality as a whole. And if a West Grey chapter of the Grey County official plan is the best policy going forward, I wonder if Grey County would be receptive to having us write a draft of that and submit it to them for possible inclusion in their official plan. Staff is going to come back with a report, so I'm just planting some seeds. Thank you.
In staff's mind, and Carl, to the question that the deputy mayor brought up, do we need to make an amendment to this? That's the understanding that cost would be there. Okay, as long as that's recognized, good. The legislative director of legislation says, no, we don't need to make any amendments to it. Thank you, Jamie. Okay. Any further discussion on this? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. No other notice of motions that I'm aware of. The next one would be, are there any new notice of motions? No. Announcements? Anybody have any announcements? I was at a function on Saturday night for the municipality, in the municipality, in Ayton. I'm very proud to say I did get onto the stage to, there was a hypnotist there. I don't know whether this is a good thing or a bad thing, but he didn't get into my mind, so I didn't get hypnotized and I got booted off the stage. The Ayton Lions reinstituted their Lions steak dinner. The Lions Club in Ayton went on a leave of absence. Since 2005, 4, somewhere around there, mid 2000s, when they ceased operation, but they've come back, and it was an excellent function and whatnot, a great evening, a lot of good entertainment, and well supported by the community. I also, on Saturday, on behalf of the municipality, was in Dundalk, and we have started, February 1st is the start of Black History Month, and Black history in Grey County is extremely deep. as the slave trade in the United States and Canada, the Underground Railroad, Owen Sound was the end of the course. And there was quite a few in the historical facts about that, but it opened up, I think, for a number of years. Two residents were very prominent, two residents of West Grey, one a former staff member here, Les McKinnon, and Greta Kennedy did a lot to have that and keep it open, and understanding of the Black history of Grey County. So it has been kind of transferred, and council member from Southgate, Joan Johns, and her community group, the Junction, really took it up. A great little opening for Black History Month. So there'll be a number of activities going on and understanding and celebrations of that throughout the month of February. But even more so, I think it's coming more and more of a 12 months understanding of how the Black community has played a role in the development of Grey County. And that's it. Anything else? Councillor Hutchison, Doug?
Yeah, just put a little plug in for the Frazzle Fest that's coming up in on the weekend of the 15th, 16th, 17th, Family Day weekend. Chamber, our local South Grey Chamber of Commerce, I guess is right, is taking the lead on it. I know Nicole at the office here has been involved, and the BIA to a certain extent. So look, just a reminder for people to check their Facebook pages and for all the activities, anywhere from public skating to family dance. The Lions Club's having a number of breakfasts, Legion's having a breakfast, number of things going on, and happy to announce, I don't think it's out there too much, but also the conservation, the Durham Park is involved in having some activities on the Monday of Family Day, snowshoeing and disc golf and some things. So at the Gatehouse, so lots of things going on that weekend. So hopefully people will take part. Sounds like a fun time. Thanks.
Scott? Mr. Forster?
All right. Saturday morning, I assisted the volunteers at the West Grey Community Gardens and Orchard with pruning the orchard. 3 of the volunteers were out, so I gave them a little bit of knowledge on pruning and upkeeping the orchard. Then on Friday, February 14th, part of Frazzle Fest at Elmwood Community Service Association, new name for them, is having their wing night 5 to 9. Bring your Valentine out that night.
Anything else? Oh, just one Valentine at a time? Oh, okay, good. Thanks for the clarification, Scott. I just wanted to say, and the CEO, Michelle, had mentioned it. We were at Roma conference, and just a bit of an update. Did meet with 3 ministers, with the Ministry, Parliamentary Assistant with the Ministry of Health, Anthony Leonardi, I think is how you, it's close. I got the Anthony part right. I can say his first name. Certainly a discussion on our on the hospital and healthcare, rural healthcare delivery, and updated him on what is happening there and our concerns still with the Durham Hospital, the emergency still being closed, and not only that, it's happening more and more across rural Ontario. Met with Ministry of Transportation on access out onto Highway 6. We didn't mention about our accesses onto Highway 10. Everybody kind of forgets that, but we do have not a large part of Highway 10, but West Grey does front onto Highway 10, some properties there north and south of Markdale. And so it was highway access there. And getting a better report. It was a good response from the parliamentary assistant, Mr. Reese, on that. Got a connection, so we'll be able to have quarterly updates and communication and being able to know. I think that was very good of being able to make those connections on who we need to see and address. The other thing certainly was the crosswalk concerns on Highway 6, and had a good response on that, on how we can start moving forward on those concerns as well too. And the last one, or the first one that we had, was the Minister of Infrastructure, Minister Suma, and made her aware of where we were in rural Ontario, and she was very pleased that she had pots of money and whatnot. And we started to inform her, well, that's fine, but in rural Ontario, we don't meet this criteria, we don't meet that criteria, we don't meet that criteria. Yeah, we can't even lift the lid off the pot sometimes, even to take a look into what is there. And she was receptive to that and saying that she was going to work with us. And I guess that was a positive part on positive thinking on her part, because I'm sure that she was well aware that when Roma, the conference ended on the Tuesday, that Wednesday the election was going to be called. So anything that they had said, the biggest thing about the conference was, that underlying. And we had speeches from all four party leaders, and all four party leaders, their speeches were definitely the election is here, and they were election speeches. They certainly weren't anything addressing rural affairs or anything of that nature. It was their gung ho on the election. So obviously it's here, and by the end of February, I guess we'll see what the electorate of Ontario is going to have and whom is going to be representing Bruce Grey Owen Sound, among others. So that was my update. Anything else, Jeff and or Doug, that we're at Roma? Jeff?
No, I would just say that the mayor and CAO represented us ably at those delegations. Were clear speakers, had good preparation, and were very moving. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you, Jeff. Okay. Any other announcements? No? Closed session. Aware of any? Hasn't come up. Bylaws. We have 3 bylaws. 25009, confirming. 010 is a zoning bylaw amendment, and 011 is second bylaw amendment from the Committee of Adjustment. Right? Committee of Adjustment? Yeah. Recommended the passing of these two bylaws. If there's none to be pulled, we can do them in one motion. Moved by Deputy Mayor Hutchison, seconder, Councillor Townsend. Any comments or questions on those 2 bylaws? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Thank you very much. And that is all the business we have on the agenda today. With that, I'll declare the meeting adjourned.